Serethi Voss pressed her scarred forearm against the viewport glass and watched the Velarys Nebula swallow her shuttle whole. Violet light flooded the cockpit. The medical readouts jury-rigged to her armrest spiked twice, then held steady at a frequency the equipment was never designed to measure. Her binding scars pulsed at the base of her skull. She did not count her breaths. Slow, rhythmic. She had stopped like counting 3 systems ago when the scars began answering signals she could not hear. Ahead. The nebula corridor narrowed. Through the violet haze, shapes emerged, geometric, impossible, half buried in the densest clouds, like the bones of something that had died standing up. The drift cannons. She had seen the aftermath of their first firing. A debris field where a moon had been, 60,000 lives converted to superheated slag in the time it took to draw a breath. On Ethan the weapon was cycling again. 400 light-years away. Had a second Empress target. Regent Lysara Aethenis stood at the head of her conference table and stared at the patch on her mantle where a star system had gone dark. The luminous threads that mapped her territory had dimmed near her left shoulder. The Velarys moon Lysara pressed her palms flat on the table. Display showed the luminous cannon array cycling for a second volley, as if the mantle she had no fleet close enough to intervene. To do. She had only the knowledge that the quiet edict, 800 years of restraint, had died in a single afternoon. And the woman she had sent to stop it was a scavenger from a death world whose aboard his flagship in the nebula's outer corridor, Lord Thyros stood before the tactical hologram in his command chamber and watched the drift cannon's charge cycle climb. His progenitor implant flickered, amber light stuttering in his left eye socket, casting uneven shadows across the hexagonal walls. The flickering had started 3 days ago. Now it carried shapes. He told himself the flickering was a malfunction, scrolling across his vision like a fever dream in a dead language. He gripped the edge of his desk. The drawer on the left side was open. Inside it, the blade. The same blade that had taken his son's hand 7 years ago. He had cleaned it then. He had not cleaned it since. Serethi's shuttle docked inside the drift cannon structure with a sound like a cathedral door closing. She unstrapped, stood, and walked into the corridor. The walls woke. Progenitor circuitry that had been dormant for 8,000 years blazed to life in her footsteps. Blue-white veins of light racing ahead of her along the dark alloy. She walked, illuminating the corridor a passage stretched ahead, human impossibly long. The floor responded to her weight that made her faint luminescence, protest, leaving a trail of light behind her like a path being remembered. A sound below the air tasted of ionized metal in the moment before lightning. Static lifted the fine hair on her forearms. Behind her, boots rang on alien alloy. Kael Thyros had docked 60 seconds after Serethi in a shuttle held together by encrypted choir frequencies and salvage tape. He moved through the corridor at a run, his prosthetic hand sparking faintly where it brushed the walls, the exposed joint mechanisms catching the progenitor light. He carried no weapon. He had not carried one since Jessad exhaled. At the corridor junction, the only defensible choke point between the docking bay and the core, your father wants her alive. Turned, step aside, set his back against the wall that Serethi had just passed, and waited. They came within minutes. Guard Captain Roan first, checking his blade edge with his thumb in the amber light. The gesture was ritual, came fast. Mechanical. Kael recognized it before he recognized metal on metal. Roan had been the one who held in the narrow corridor. Behind Roan, he fought the way the silent choir had trained him. Armor, efficient, Thyros' closed fist sigil using the every shoulder and the low ceiling to neutralize numbers. He broke Roan's wrist on the second exchange. Placed both hands disarmed the nearest guard on the third. The chamber detonated with light and sparked, the joints grinding, but held. Progenitor script cascaded across every surface, walls, floor, the curved ceiling. The air itself seemed to carry characters of blue-white fire. The geometric shapes in the gas clouds outside shifted, massive structures realigning like a lock turning. The drift cannon's firing sequence paused mid-cycle. The weapon had recognized her before she asked it started at the base of her skull where the scars already lived. A sensation like ice water poured directly onto her spinal cord, then heat, then something that had no human analogue. The luminous veins spread, down her neck, across her shoulders, along her arms toward her chemical-scarred forearm, the old burns lighting up from within as if the damage itself were being rewritten. Kael heard the sound. She could not let go of the interface. Made the walls vibrate. She was not sure and her hands were still her own. In that hesitation, he put two of them down. Then Lord Thyros arrived. He walked through his own men like they were furniture. His implant was no longer flickering. It blazed, amber light pouring from his eye socket in a steady stream. And the progenitor script that had been haunting his vision was now audible. He was muttering it, words in a language no human should know. In his right syllables hand, that made the corridor's progenitor circuitry flare, 7 years older, and dim in response, the edge still sharp enough to catch the light. Kael said, "Father." Lord Thyros looked at his son, or tried to. The implant was feeding him something that overlaid Kael's face with scrolling text, and for a moment the old man's expression fractured between recognition and bewilderment. The blade as if he was seeing his son Kael through a page on his prosthetic hand, and the hand died. Lord Thyros whispered, "The mechanism seized. I can hear them. Sparks fountained from the wrist. They are still here." The blade slid past and opened a cut along Kael's ribs, the same side, the same motion Lord Thyros had used 7 years ago. Serethi fought one-handed, not his from father pain, fought like a man possessed, which the progenitor systems were pouring through her faster than her nervous system could process. Star charts, weapon schematics, the architecture of a civilization 8 millennia dead, all of it burning through her binding scars like data through a cable that was never designed to carry this voltage. She held on. The drift cannons went dark. Every screen on Lord Thyros's flagship went white, then black. The tactical hologram in the command chamber collapsed. In the nebula, the massive geometric shapes half buried in the gas clouds over his powered down, bleeding, lights extinguishing in the blade lay between them, a city going to split up. Lord Thyros dropped. Mid-swing, mid-word, his implant overloaded with the network's shutdown cascade, and he collapsed to the corridor floor, still speaking in that dead language, his amber eye blazing so bright in the core it left after images on the wall a steady glow. Kael found Serethi on her knees before the interface, her hands still pressed to the crystalline surface, her binding scars no longer faint. They blazed in solid lines of blue-white from the base of her skull to her fingertips, permanent, luminous, unmistakable. He knelt beside her, took her wrists, opened her pulled eyes, her hands from the interface. They glowed. The same blue-white as the archive's walls, as the progenitor script, as the veins now mapped across her skin. She looked at Kael and past him, at something he could not see. Her pupils tracked movement that was not there. She blinked, and the glow dimmed, on Ethan but did not go out. Lysera watched she whispered, the drift cannon signatures vanish from code. Her tactical display. It is in everything, one by the one, walls, like air, stars your setting hand, below a horizon. She looked at his prosthetic, no new patches dimmed dark. On her mantle. Even that, the weapon was I cannot silent. Turn it off. The scavenger from dust had done what 400 years of diplomacy could not. Lysera stood very still for a long time. Then she said, to no one in the room, "What is she now?"